Robert Rabel, from the 1942 to 62, was the minister of this church. He wrote, "We build the church because we want to grow and mature with things of the Spirit, because we want to possess the values, human and divine, which this church can inculcate in us and in our children. No other institution on the face of the earth," Rabel says, "can possibly do this for us. Nothing else you can possibly buy, no other investment you can possibly make will ever repay you one iota of the satisfaction or any such commensurate return," Rabel says, "as this church will be refunding you daily in the deep things of the Spirit, which it awakens and keeps alive in you, and also in its ability to serve your needs at the times of crisis in your life." Our tears last week while Carter Stanton, one of our youth, spoke of her heartbreaking loss of a friend in high school who died were not necessarily for her friend or for her situation. I think they were for this church. Tears of joy and success. That everything we do here is articulated in Carter, who I watched grow up here over the years, the last 14 or 15. I could see what she saw when she said she remembered sitting here on the second row at the candlelight service in Christmas. I could see her 7-year-old self. And I could see her coming through our coming of age program and youth program. And then she said what this theme year and what this church is all about. She said, and I quote, "What I cherish is the way this church has taught me to love." My tears were for that line. Now, I'm sure her parents had a lot to do with it, but my wife reminded me her parents also brought her here every day, every Sunday, right? They could have stayed home, but it worked, right, Mike? And it made me think that Rabel was right, that no other institution on the face of the earth can possibly do this for us. To add to the emotional week I had last week, I was here last Sunday memorializing a member of the church. Her name was Carol Brickell. Her husband is there. She was a quirky, loving person who never let go of what she cared about. She was a coach, and she worked at EDS, and she was a musician, and she was good at helping people connect with what they needed to do, and she was like a dog with a bone when she found a passion. Once she learned that her uncle, Mont McCullough, who created soft-serve ice cream and founded the first Dairy Queen, that there was no sign for him on the sign at the town in Iowa. So she called every single person at the Dairy Queen all the way up the chain until they got a sign put on the town sign. Founder of Dairy Queen, right? One day on a mission trip with her previous church, she was in India and surrounded by poverty-stricken children, and she handed one of the children a granola bar and was struck, she told me, like lightning, collapsed sobbing. She cherished these people so much, the pain of their struggle was too much, and then she heard the call, "You need to help more people." So she started feeding people at the Austin Street shelter and went to Honduras and worked in a clinic where she saw a cat hanging around the clinic. And so she wrote a book about that cat and the clinic as a way to teach children about helping others. Carol was remarkable in that despite her work, she followed what she cherished to make a difference in the world. She knew how to love the world, people, animals, music. She wrote a hymn for her mother's memorial that we heard here last week. She painted everything she could. She once asked me for a picture of my dog, and I sent her one of us walking in the last ice storm, and a month later I received a watercolor of that photo. More than that, she came here. At first, because the Episcopalian church she came from was torn apart by issues of same-gender marriage, and then she came here by choice. She came here to be loved and to practice love. She was a woman of passion and action, and she died of cancer on the last day of 2021. I tell you all this because we are here today to end the Cherish theme year. We started way back when I was young, in September 2021. We started asking you to get on the train. I told you the story of Frederick Douglass, and all he had to do to get to freedom was to step on the train, and I called on you to do the same in your own way, if only it meant coming into community, called to reconnect the parts of your life, no matter how difficult that felt, to commit to your spiritual development after all we had been through, joining in this creative community of care and justice-making and service to others, to find the train that you needed to get on and not stand on the platform while it left the station. For the theist, I said it might mean living into the song of St. Francis that begins, "Make me a channel or instrument of your peace, where God is the conductor of your life and you are ready to be led." For everyone else, it meant something like, your life is not about you. You are about life. And all you can do is say yes to your life right now. That's all. That is part of restoring and refining our purpose together. It starts with saying yes to life, to trains that are departing toward healthy and holy endeavors that call us. It starts here in our gathering. We went through a lot to get to that opening in September of 2021. And we've been through a lot since then. Sermon series on living in the tensions of the world, on cherished values and redefining theological terms for our use over and over. We have asked you the same kinds of questions. What do you cherish in the world? We have had front porch conversations on how to be an activist and about discovering family secrets and connections that cross unfathomable lines of history and race. We have had educational events about connection and passion, to wade in the water just, I don't know, when was that, last week? It seemed like 3 years ago. To wade in the water events where we engaged each other in story and song. As I said back in gathering, when we were back together for the first time in 2 years, courage and wholeness, joy and hope are our guide. I said practicing these are what we are doing this year. More in dialogue with each other than programs that fix us. More in fellowship opportunities than in over-scheduled repetitions of what we used to do. More in trying to love one another than racing for the next thing. So now we are asking you, when you get on that train of life, what do you find? Do you find yourself in what Howard Thurman calls the desultory life that reminds you of nothing but the list of chores that you have? Or will you stand on the railing looking out over the sea and dive headlong in love with the world, courageous and lively? We've asked you, what do you cherish? We are asking you today, when you know what you cherish, what are you willing to sacrifice or do for that thing and person or value or hope? We are asking you to consider what matters and whether you will keep what you cherish hidden or do something with it. Let me tell you why you are here. You're here to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. If you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. I quote Matthew chapter 5. Is it familiar? It's a different version, I agree. The King James says, "Ye are salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men." That's King James, but we don't read the King James. Here we read the Message Bible. Okay, I'm taking some liberties, but you get the picture, right? You are the salt of the earth. The statement follows one of the best sermons ever, the Sermon on the Mount, about the meek inheriting the earth and those who grieve no life. What does this statement about being salt say? It was saying to those, who heard it, will you love life? Will you live fully? Will you stand on the railing of the ship ready to dive into the sea? Only those who fear the world's gifts, some of them that are residing within you, know how to have courage to live, is what that text was saying. Salt was a currency in the ancient world, mined from the Dead Sea and sent around the Roman Empire. It was a precious commodity. In a sense, the gospel writers are saying that you are precious. So don't hide yourself with work, with busyness, with whatever you learned in your family about not telling people what's important to you or holding back your emotions. Use the currency you have within you. The text says it another way, not the King James, but my version. Here's another way to put it, it says. You are to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? A bucket, I love a bucket, not a bushel. I'm putting you on a light stand, the text says. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. Be opening up to others. You'll prompt people to open up with God. In short, it says shine. When I hear that, I can't stop thinking about the stand-up comedy piece by Michelle Wolf, who said her friend got shine tattooed on her forehead. Her friend said she did it to remind herself to shine, and Michelle thought, I thought that said shin, and you've mislabeled yourself. Then she said hilariously, but shine? Are we in a musical, auditioning for a musical? Cherish is a better way to say it. Maybe a better tattoo. Cherish this year is always meant to ask you, what do you set your heart upon? To live is to cherish what you set your heart upon and then work to show it, to expand it, to help it live for others, for more than itself, like raising a child or a church or a value. So what I want us to do now is to read back to you some of the things you wrote to us last week in church when we asked you what you cherish. Here is what you wrote, some of what you wrote, some of the statements that you wrote in the what do you cherish question. The first goes like this: I cherish, these are your words, I cherish the joy this church inspires in me and others. It penetrates every fiber of my soul.
I cherish the connect and community of being in person after a long period of remoteness and isolation. We've all been changed by the pandemic and have to rediscover or reinvent our world. I cherish being seen and understood.
I cherish the peace each Sunday in church brings me, watching a young child skip into the sanctuary, the people I have met here and friends made, this religion leading me to serve important and necessary things.
I cherish life itself.
I cherish this church as it walks the walk of racial equity, making dignity and worth its goal for all people.
I cherish my church friends as they accept me for who I am. I cherish the life today by doing more and worrying less, by not being afraid to reach out to family and friends.
I cherish my freedoms, health and opportunities, sunshine, Texas peaches, homegrown tomatoes, relationships, and more.
I cherish the memories of my children as babies in this church, and now watching my kids as young adults and being welcomed as leaders in a new cherished moment.
I cherish the struggle to stay healthy mentally and physically because it means I am alive. I cherish my family who hold me up. I cherish the opportunity to wake up each day fresh and new with possibilities and growth in all things. Now, if one of these is yours, and thank you. And if you didn't do this exercise, here's the next challenge. Get a Cherish tattoo. I'm just kidding. But I want to ask you to get specific. I want you to write down what you cherish. And what I mean by this is you write first what you cherish, not the other way around. Then I want you to do something specific, to write down what you cherish and turn it into an action for today or for this week. Often the real change happens only by doing just what we are good at, but not what we are good at, but what we're really passionate about. What we cherish and what we love should guide our activities. Oftentimes, we just continue to do the things because we're good at those things. But if we write down on that side of the graph here, what do I cherish? And then turn it into an action today. It means backing into a new kind of mission in life. It could be something as simple as just sending a loving greeting to somebody who needs to hear from you, but it could be something else too. It could be kind of like Carol Brickell or maybe Carter Stanton, or so many who have found what they cherish first and what they will do second. Or like my parishioner in Boston 23 years ago, who was a successful architect and realized he was more passionate about woodwork, cherishing the time of working with his hands in his workshop, making smaller things and making buildings. Then he realized he was passionate about children. And I want to remember, but I don't know all the details, but I think he started teaching children to do woodwork. Maybe children who were like him when he was a poor child in South America and had nothing but a knife to whittle with. And he went on to affect so many lives by following what the 2 or 3 things he cherished most were. He left a lucrative career to change his community. So this is today's spiritual exercise as we close this Cherish year, to turn what you cherish into what you will do this week or today. Maybe a simple thing, a gesture, or start something. And the second part of this exercise I want you to tell, and this is not abstract. This is not an abstract exercise, right? I'm actually asking you to do this. Because what I want you to do when we leave this sanctuary today is tell somebody about, 1, what you cherish, and 2, what you want to do. After the postlude, turn to your neighbor and tell them this. Or go out to the coffee and find somebody. This is how the world changes. This is how the salt feeds the earth, and this is how the light shines beyond the bucket. We have an opportunity This one idea that you have might become a big idea. I don't know, maybe somebody in here can expand on your simple idea and turn it into something amazing. And if you're inclined, I want you to take up the complication on this, borrowing from Deep Adaptation, the work of environmental activist Jem Bendel, to answer these questions about what you're going to do. What do we value most and want to keep? What do we want to let go of? What can we bring back? And what shall we have peace around as we awaken to our common morality? If you want these questions, the ushers have a copy of these questions. Are you inclined to do something today to turn this Cherish year into something important in your life? These are beginnings. Because I think Robert Rabel was right. He said we build this church to serve you in your spiritual needs. But I think he was also wrong. Because I think we also build this church so that we continue to build the world that we want to see. We move out into the world with the light to shine, to cherish. And if we don't do that, no one will. Can I get an amen?